What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. I'm going to be starting a table that I've been contracted to build for some folks. It's going to be a 4x8 river table consisting of 2 walnut slabs and a epoxy river up the middle. The table probably will consist of about a 10-gallon pour. It's going to be a lot of epoxy in this thing. It's about 2 inches, 1 3/4 thick. And it's just a big table. It'll be my biggest pour yet. So why don't you come along and just, if you'd like, check it out. These are the slabs. Slab number 1, slab number 2. This is a 4x8 sheet of melamine. So you can see that's basically the size of the table. This is roughly the position of the slabs on the what will be a form. So this will come up into a form. It'll be clear epoxy on the sides, and as the slab slides off the side of the table, that's where the slabs get trimmed and it'll butt against the form. So it'll kind of go in and out of a square side, the being live edge. And the live edge portion here is going to be clear epoxy in here, so the whole side of the table will be squared off. And then here in the middle, right here, is going to be about 1/3 of the way up of the side of this slab. It's going to be like a turquoise pearlescent, and then the rest of the way up is going to be clear. And then this is going to be a gloss finish on the river, and then a kind of a matte finish or satin finish more on the slabs, which is a challenge to achieve. But we want to see like water here, and then we want a more classic look on the walnut. So that's a bit of a challenge. So this live edge is going to get mostly trimmed off. It's a pretty live edge, but it's got to go. It's what the customer wants, and I think it's going to be great. Look at the grain in this wood is just incredible. It hasn't even been sanded yet. This is, obviously just, I've routered these slabs and flattened them. I'll spare you from that boredom. There's plenty of videos on YouTube of how to router a slab flat. I'm in here picking out all these bug holes. Okay, I got my dental pick set, and I'm trying just to get all the bug poop and dirt and debris out of all these holes. And this old dead knot hole here, all this is going to get filled with epoxy. I'm going to coat it all first with epoxy, and then I go ahead and pour. This will be a clear pour that's going to get epoxy in it ahead of time. And then eventually all these bug holes, I'm going to coat both of these slabs completely with epoxy first, and that'll help stopping any air and bubbles from coming out. So anyway, it's going to be pretty cool. I'm not going to ramble on anymore. You can just sit back and watch. I'll try to keep it interesting and get the monotonous stuff out of there. So just sit back and watch. So this is oddly very relaxing for me to sit here and clean this wood up. I'm picking out all the rotten wood, all the bug poop and trash in here, cleaning all the termite holes. I use this Dremel tool with the wire wheel on it. Works perfect because it's aggressive enough to take the rotten wood out, but doesn't tear up the good wood too much. And it kind of just is the right coarseness to distinguish between the two. Right here I'm using the track saw to lop off the ends. So Makita cordless 6.5 inch track saw. It could be a little bit bigger and have a little bit more power, but it works fine for what I use it for. It makes a beautiful cut.
So I'm cutting them to length now so they'll fit into the form that I'm getting ready to build. Lopping off the length. And then here, that one live edge hangs over the edge there, so I break out the 8-foot track so I can get a nice straight cut all the way down the length of this thing.
All right, I'm down here on a Saturday night trying to get something done. What I'm going to do is coat these slabs 100% in epoxy. I'm going to paint it on with a brush. I'm going to hit all my edges, all the features here and crevices, and then I'm going to go ahead and paint the entire surface as well while I'm at it, the ends, in order to seal up these bug holes and any cracks and all these bark inclusions and whatnot. It'll help to keep that from emitting air after I go with the deep pour, and also it locks the color in if I do any like repairing the bug holes and stuff with tinted epoxy. It'll keep that from staining. So I'm gonna go ahead and use the liquid glass here, the deep pour. I'm just gonna go ahead and use that. It's just gonna take longer to dry, but I got a couple of days that I'm going to be doing nothing with them anyway. So here's what I got to, I got the epoxy mixing cup. Gonna pretty much trowel it on, and then I'm gonna spread it around with a brush. So let's see how it goes. All right, everybody, just so you know, this is the back or the bottom, and it's not been sanded, and the router marks are there. I know that. This is just to seal it, so I can see the comments already. It's all wavy, it's got scratches, don't worry about it.
So another advantage of using the slow set epoxy is if you see here when you're working it in with the brush, it gets kind of foamy, but you really kind of need the brush bristles to work it into all the nooks and crannies. And with the quick set, it dries so fast it locks that foam in, but the slow set's like a 3-day cure. So over that period of time, all those little bubbles, micro bubbles, pop, and it just turns to clear liquid. But I have had problems in the past with the quick set where it would cure so fast that it locked that foam in there, and it was there forever. And so I've learned from my mistakes on that one. And here I'm torching it out to get it to lay down and pop all the bubbles that are coming up out of the holes and whatnot. So now I'm spraying the form down with mold release. Notice I have the slabs covered up. You don't want to get any mold release on your slabs. You want, obviously, the epoxy to stick to that. I use a laser to make sure that the table's flat. Nice comb over, dude. Here I have one of my favorite helpers helping me, my daughter. And what I'm doing here is pouring down a thin layer of clear, about a 1/4 inch, over the entire bottom of the form and the slabs. And what this is going to do is it's going to lock these slabs down, and it's going to seal up any voids in between the bottom of the form and the slab itself. And it's going to keep the color epoxy that I'm pouring in the middle from bleeding out to the outside edges, because the customer wants color up the middle and clear on the sides. And so this is the most effective way I could think of and was advised to, to keep that from happening. Because if you just poured, color up the middle and you wanted clear on the outside, there's nothing stopping it just through pressure from it just to push out and bleed over to the sides. So it worked well. You notice I put the epoxy on top to keep it from floating up. That's another thing. When I put in layers after this, it's going to be locked down. They won't float up. And of course, torching it all out, I mean, bubbles are coming out everywhere. So you got to babysit it for a while. Make sure you catch all the bubbles until it, fills all the little voids up, and they'll eventually stop coming out. To the fun part, the color. We picked the color on this project from advice or input from the customer, basically sending me via text a couple of screenshots that he had pulled off of like Pinterest. It was just an inspiration picture of a particular table that he liked. And from those two screenshots, it had the color on there, and it also had the feature of the clear epoxy over the color, which was pretty cool and quite challenging, I might add. But I mixed up a test batch right there you see in that 10 tray, and took some pictures of that and sent to him, and away we went, just back and forth on the phone and sending pictures back and forth. So mixing up about 3 gallons here is what I calculated it needed to be. It's going to be about a 1/2 inch of the colored epoxy. I think I let it degas for about nearly an hour. It's 3-day, 72-hour cure, so you can really let the bubbles degas for a while. So the clear on the bottom is kind of semi-tacky hard right now, so you're going to get a good chemical bond. And yep, just let it ooze. And what I did on this one is I poured about half the bucket on one side and walked to the other side and poured in the other half. Kind of makes sense. And but what ended up happening was odd. Is I think in the hour that I let it degas, I think some of the colors kind of settled, and so it seemed as if or some of the colors floated up. It seemed it was like 2 different colors from the top of the bucket to the bottom of the bucket. So what happened was both of these kind of separate pours met in the middle, and then it was kind of like they fought and pushed each other back and forth over like a 24-hour period, with one side winning for a while and the other side winning, and I'm sitting there waiting for them just to blend, and it was like a stark line right in the middle. And finally at the end, when I put the swirl into it, it finally kind of feathered it out, but it was still there in the final product. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's art. It's not dimensional carpentry. It doesn't matter. But it was interesting to note, and something I'll pay attention to in the future. Different levels of your bucket having maybe different concentrations of color, and just always mix it there right at the end if you let it set for a while. And you can see it here. This is, a while later. It's still pushing and pulling back and forth. And like I said before, you always got to babysit those bubbles. Keep getting those out. And so I've let it set a while, and you kind of put a preliminary swirl in there. What happens, you put a swirl in there and then it kind of mellows out and through osmosis just reblends itself, and you got to come back and kind of hit it again. So when you do a swirl on this, you just kind of need to decide on a certain pattern and go with it and keep it pretty much consistent throughout the whole thing. What you can see the line right there? That's exactly what, I mean, it stayed like that the whole time. And then at the end, oops, I dropped a stick. That's all right. It's all part of the fun. I think we ended up using like 4 or 5 different colors in this thing. It was the teal, the aluminum colored pearlescent. It had green. It had black even in there, and a different color blue. The caulk is a dam, so you can fill up areas and kind of overfill it in anticipation of it shrinking, because when you're right here with the clear pour, we're going to probably pour an inch worth. It's about a 7-gallon pour. When you pour this much, you're going to get shrinkage as it gets hard. And also when you pour this much, like I said, it's about 7 gallons. You got to watch the temperature on it, especially around that about 8-hour mark. It really starts to get up there, so you want to run some fans on it or keep it cool in the room, because it's kind of like a chain reaction, China syndrome thing. Once it starts getting above like 115, 120, it can just snowball, and your table can crack, it can warp, it locks in, it cures too fast to where, you know, it'll actually freeze bubbles halfway floating up, and just all kinds of nasty things. So temperature, monitor the temperature on it is very important. I've learned the hard way on that. And of course, it's always fun to pop these bubbles. And this is like 3 days later, and I wasn't at first really happy with it. I was like, man, it locked in these bubbles. The table's ruined. You know, kind of freaked out at first, but ended up, to get the table flat again, it had to take about an 1/8 inch off, and once I took all that off, it was fine.
Oh wow, it just came off. Man, that looks cool. And here I'm reflattening it with the router sled, because, you know, it shrinks in the middle and it's got high spots and it's lumpy, and you got to get it flat, you know. Be nice to have a, 60-inch planer, but I don't have one. So this is a 48-inch wide table, so, you know, you need a CNC or the old CNC elbow grease. So I got a router sled, and you got to have some dust collection. I hobbied up my own little dust collection system on it, and works pretty good. Going to a shop vac. If you didn't have that, your whole shop would just be a mess. So it's tedious, it takes hours, and boom, this is what you get. All right, done. I don't know, I probably took about 1/8 off. I got through. I got a lot deeper into this thing than I thought. I don't know if I wanted, but still looks like it's got good thickness to it. About 1.5 inches. I had just a little rough here. Not really, it's good. Bug holes have to be filled. Sides look good. All in all, I'm happy with it.
And I will spare you from hours of sanding footage. Here it is, sanded. And what I'm doing now is laying down kind of a final coat of epoxy, because when you router it down 1/8 of an inch, you expose all kinds of new little pits and voids that need to be filled, and air bubbles that you kind of half opened in the clear, and you just need to fill in the nooks and crannies. So this final coat just kind of floods it over and fills all that in. And it's a great opportunity to get a sneak peek of what it's going to look like, the final product. So real happy with how it's looking here. The clear on top turned out great, and you know, the color is great. So I think the teal with the walnut is a great color combination. So I was really happy with it, and it just pops when you put this on here and kind of just removes the fog.